Now before I try to pass this through the router, I want to get rid of this squeeze out. It's pretty hard. And if I try to use my system here with the blade, I'm afraid that I could accidentally tear some wood out. So I think in this case I'm probably better off removing the squeeze out with my sander, even though I'm going to risk getting this glue embedded in my sanding belt. Now there's probably somebody out there that's saying, well, hey, wait a minute, isn't the lathe going to take that off? Well, yeah, it will. It'll take it off from about here to here, but it won't do the very ends. So I may as well do the whole thing as long as I've got to do the very ends. Well, after I used the belt eraser on it, it doesn't look too much the worse for wear. In fact, I can't even see where the glue was. I think there was a line right there. There would have been another one. Or was it here and here? Well, if it's so slight like that that you can't tell, I guess it's okay. Now, I don't know if it makes any difference, but I like to take the tension off. And I think the joint might stand up a little better. Now, I did actually have a hand belt sander separate one time, but I think I'd left it under tension for, about a year. And then I went to use it and I found that it had separated. I do the same thing with the bandsaw. I take the tension off the blade when I'm not using it. That's just my own personal idea. I don't know if it means anything or not. These joints are sanded nice and flush now. And there's no tear out at the ends, and that's what I was worried about. And I don't have all those little bumpy pieces of glue sticking out that would catch on the fence as I'm trying to run it through here. You may remember me saying I show my mistakes. I think I said that anyway. Well, here's my mistake. I put in the wrong bit. I should have put in this one here. So now I'm going to have to try and hide this in the back of the clock somewhere where no one's going to see it. And I think I can do that, except I'm going to know it's there. And I almost always run a test piece through. And this time I didn't. Stupid. Well, it's the next morning, and I was laying in bed last night, and I'm thinking about my little disaster that I had here, because I had put the wrong bit in. And I was thinking, all I had to do was just adjust my the height of the bit just another 1/16 of an inch, and this would have been symmetrical. In other words, there would have been a little lip right here, as well as the one that's right there. And I'm thinking, maybe that wouldn't have looked so bad. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try a test piece and see how it looks, and if it looks nice, well, I'll just run all these pieces through again, and maybe this is going to turn out to be not such a bad thing after all. I'm thinking now, this doesn't look half bad at all. Now this corner here I've already run through. Can't make it much worse than it already is. So we'll run it through first and just see how it looks. Well, I forgot to press record there, but anyway, it came out really good. And I'm going to just do all the other corners now the same. So I was thinking before I turn these nice pieces of oak down, or try to turn them down on my lathe, I better make a couple of practice pieces out of a piece of scrap 2x4 here. And it's kind of interesting. I went into the back where I store all my junky lumber, and here's a piece here. It's within 1/4 of an inch of the right length already. What are the odds? Well, I guess you could probably say these are reasonable facsimiles. At least I can do a little practicing before I, mess up the real stuff. Now I know I've talked about this drill press before and how handy it is in a workshop like I've got. It is so versatile. It is so adjustable. I can micro adjust it in and out this way with this knob in the back. And of course I can go back and forth this way. And also I'll show you underneath here what I did. Because this table splits right here, I was able to just use it as a clamp to hold my work in place with a pair of vice grips. Now I'm reaching in the back there where that adjustment knob is. And I want you to notice how I can just micro adjust this brad point until I get it just exactly where I want it. Then lock everything in place. This is really nice. And of course for the other direction, you just swing the table till you get it just where you want it. And then you're centered. Now before I get this thing all adjusted and actually start using it, I want to show you while I can get the camera in here. I call this bar that goes down here the finger, because what it does is it sort of feels along the contour of the template that we made. And what it will do is it will ride along and it will pull this back and forth. And I'll sort of show you here. And while it's going back and forth here, the cutter up at the spindle is doing the same thing. Now this spindle is turned down to match the contour on the template. I've stopped the lathe here so that you can actually watch it. You can watch the cutter, how it travels along. Now just imagine the spindle turning at about 2,000 RPM. And that's how it works. Now I don't want to be misleading anybody here into thinking that they can buy one of these things and put it on their lathe and then they're going to be able to turn down a bunch of duplicate spindles real fast. It's not real fast. It's accurate, but it's not real fast. Well, first of all, this thing weighs about 65 pounds. So you got to mount it on your lathe. And you got to get it adjusted just right. And then it takes about 25 passes. You don't do this in just one pass. And what you do is you have it so that the cutter is just barely touching the spindle, the blank, and then you go across, and then you fine adjust it in so that the finger is allowed to go in a little closer. And eventually, after about 25 times doing this, the finger will have reached the furthest part in here, and it's done the smallest diameter. It's a good device. I like it. I use it. If I didn't like it, I wouldn't use it. So anyway, just thought I better, I didn't want to mislead anybody into thinking you just put this on and then zip, zip, zip and you're done. Okay, I guess that's my disclaimer for this episode. Well, once again, it's the next morning. And last night before I turned in, I checked my email, and somebody had indicated that they were really looking forward to seeing how this thing works. So today, I'm going to show a few little interesting things about this. Might be a bit of a disjointed segment here, but I think you'll find it a little bit interesting if you're thinking of possibly picking up one of these for yourself. Now, one of the things that I found is that if I use just plain old STP on all the moving parts and I sort of goop it on like right here where the finger's going to slide, and other places that I'll show you in a minute, I find that the finger will slide a lot better, less binding. I'll show you. Another place I put it is on this shaft. And also right here on the finger, where it rubs back and forth on this guide. I guess the engineers, when they designed this thing, they thought they'd make it easy for the end user, who is me, and they put this thing on here. The idea is that you would have it set like this, then you would run the cutter back and forth, and then you'd move it up a notch, and another notch, and then another notch, and so on. And then there would only be about, what, 8 positions and you're done. But what I was finding was that it was just way too coarse. In other words, it just moved it in far too much, and the cutter was grabbing. I couldn't use that. So the way I do it is, I just micro adjust it. I use this right here, and I just turn about half a turn each time. And in other words, I guess what it does is it moves it in about half a thread distance. And that seems to be just about right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a spindle through and actually do it. And I'll do it in time lapse. And we'll just count and see how many times we actually have to pass. At least that's the way I do it. Okay, here we go with the first pass. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Well, I said there was 25. I guess I was wrong. I meant 15. Well, I don't know how this will be when it's sanded down, but it's very difficult to see the split in the wood from this piece to this piece. I can see it because I know where it is. Well, that's 2 down and 4 more to go. I guess that's 3 down if you want to count the practice one. Now, if you're interested in seeing a little bit more on this spindle duplicator, I did a sort of a review on it about 18 months ago, and I'll try and put a link to that review in the comments section just below this video.